Da 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 da
That's such a good
da da.
intro.
Before we went live, I'm screwing around because I use an app, a streaming app called Restream, and I go through. It's got like 10 different music. You can have the cool background, like or you can have like ducks quacking. It's either like or it's like ocean waves with like whale sounds, and it's like I don't want ocean waves with.
Meditation
I want.
music.
I
Yeah.
just I want something kind of cool, just something kind of you guys don't care about that. We have 11 people here today. I'm going to bring you guys right in. Thanks for spending Saturday with the one, the only, the lovely purple Valkyrie. Hail to you, Miss Martin Muses. It's great to see you. Fantastic channel. Thank you for the rose. It's wonderful to see you. Zax and I were just pinging on social media. Man has a busy schedule today and apparently is going to a tourist trap with his family. So God bless you, Zax.
Yes.
Yeah, the one and only Jaden Hamilton, who will soon be in college. I can't wait to hear your stories of debauchery and awkwardness, Jaden. It's great to see you. We have a very good friend of this channel, Doviende Setovi Seguin, who's having a hard time right now. Please, in chat, just give Dovi a little affirmation. Say, you know what, this too shall pass. Dovi,
Mhm.
I've been where you are. And just keep on keeping on, brother. It's great to see you. I'm glad you're here. Really. And we've got Zax flirting with Purple Valkyrie. I'm going to tell your. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell your wife, Zax. I am. The one and only Lord Thoth is here. It's great to see you. Absolutely wonderful to see you. And then, of course, channel member William 101. It's great to see you. One of my Taveran. Awesome. And then we got Steve, who's hanging around trying to pick pockets and see if any cars are unlocked in the parking lot to steal money. It's great to see you, Steve. Nathan, a man of Manethrin, was supposed to join us. I don't know if he got lost or something like that, but he may pop in. So we don't really have a set agenda. Actually, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. One which surprised me, and Purple didn't know about it either.
Mhm.
Yes, it has to do with Disney Star Wars, which I don't have any F's to give. But why it's interesting is it has to do with a re-release of a movie in IMAX format. Before we get into that, Purple Valkyrie, how has your Saturday been?
It's going well, actually. Yeah, had a quite a chill day. Did what I usually do when I have a day off. I did a lot of cleaning, and for the first time ever, I've made jambalaya, which was absolutely
Oh,
delicious.
jambalaya is a very good thing. You know who else is jambalaya? There's a guy in Ohio by the name of a man of Manethrin. So, and we're getting feedback big time from him. I'm gonna go ahead and mute him. All right, how you doing, Nathan? I guess he's doing well. All right, we'll move on to
Sorry,
the
trying to
next.
get my mic to work. My headphones.
It's all right. It's okay. So glad you're here, Nathan. We're just going to continue on with the conversation. Purple was just talking to us about she was making jambalaya. I'm going to mute you, Nathan. Yeah, we're making jambalaya. So what did you put in it? Did you put chicken in it? Did you put sausage in it? I mean, welcome to Corey's cooking channel, right?
Yes, I actually went with the spicy sausage, which I'm really glad that I did, because even though the jambalaya has a kick to it, the sausage just kind of elevated that. It was delicious, so I
Oh,
cannot wait to try and make it again.
I do love a good jambalaya, and I love a good gumbo and a good etouffee. Man, I love a good etouffee and a po' boy sandwich. How you doing, Nathan? Do you have your technical issues resolved?
I think I'm getting it working here.
You sound
Can you hear
good.
me?
Yes, it's so great to see you. Thanks for jumping on, Nathan.
Oh, not a
Jaden
problem, man.
Jaden Hamilton said he's big into gumbo. Rice is always perfect with it. I agreed, right? Creole food, Cajun food. That's probably me just appropriating somebody's culture because it is, after all, 2022. So, Nathan, I was just telling Purple Valkyrie there was some interesting developments with Disney Star Wars, which usually means it's going from worse to worser. And in this case, I'll let the people in chat be the judge. So, this is interesting. There was a movie that I saw when it came out in the theater, and I thought it was, I guess you could call it Star Wars. I guess you could call it Star Wars. It was Rogue One. It was a, girl power light movie that wanted to, I would say, retcon the the first Star Wars movie, which has since been called A New Hope, and make it so that Luke Skywalker would have never happened unless there was a woman who was there first. So, what do you think about this Purple Valkyrie? How do you feel? How did you feel about Rogue One? Did you care about this?
Ah, honestly, I guess you could say it was the best of a bad bunch, but that's not saying much when it comes to the Disney
Yeah.
era of Star Wars. I didn't like Jyn Erso as a character. I thought she was kind of a cardboard cutout. She really could have been either a male or a female character, and it really wouldn't have changed the plot either way. But there was some good scenes, especially the scene right at the end with Darth Vader in the hallway. I would say that is probably the best part, and there were parts that if I remember correctly, were actually cut. Vader had a much bigger role to play in that film, which was unfortunate.
Nathan, did you see this? What did you think of Rogue One?
Rogue One, I I'm with Purple on that. It's easily the best that Disney's produced. It was a very passable movie that was enhanced greatly by the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
If the last 10 minutes don't happen, then the movie's just not much to look at because it's just kind of like a standard action flick with Ip Man in it, who was the highlight of the movie up to that point.
Yeah. You guys are saying exactly what it was that I felt too. I was bored. I got up, I got more snacks. I went to the bathroom, looked at the coming attractions, sat back down. It didn't really feel like anything happened. It felt like I was watching a television show on a movie screen, for the lack of a better word. And I know that this movie had extensive reshoots and cuts and all this other stuff. But, that last 10 minutes with Darth Vader, I guess that was pretty good, but man, that's not worth the price of admission. You could watch that on YouTube after the movie was out. And my God, the pop-ups are crazy, guys. Sorry, I got to jump back to where we were. So yeah, Rogue One is getting a re-release in IMAX. And the reason for this is they're going to stick stuff related to the Disney Plus series in it and around it.
Boring.
Yeah.
They're really, really trying to drum up attention and try to get people to remember that Andor is actually coming out.
What's crazy about this is Rogue One came out 6 years ago. Six
Oh, geez.
6
Has it been
years
that
ago.
long?
It's been that long. So, I mean, it didn't exactly hit it out of the park. As a Star Wars movie, I mean, it was the cleanest dirty shirt, if we're honest about it. But it's going to be re-released in IMAX theaters, I guess, only on August 26th. And again, these showings will feature an exclusive look at the upcoming Andor, which is going to be a prequel to the prequel movie to the original Star Wars movie.
This is
Are you
getting
following me there?
very
Are you
complicated.
So one movie came out in 1977. It was called Star Wars. Now, in the intervening years, with all of the movies that have come out in the prequels, they've called it Star Wars: A New Hope. So Disney made a prequel to Star Wars called Rogue One. Well, Rogue One was, Cassian Andor was in it. Spoiler, he dies in that movie. So we know this guy's already dead, but because we didn't have enough of prequels before the prequels of the prequels, we now need to have a prequel to the prequel to Star Wars, which is Andor, again, much like with Black Widow, for a character that's dead. What do you think about this marketing strategy, Purple Valkyrie?
I think it's a bizarre way to go. Why would you want to go backwards? And like you say, once you know that a character is dead and you brought up Black Widow, there is no connection. You don't care because you know how their story ends. So why would I want to go back to fill in the blank? I would much rather they didn't do this, to be honest. And but they're going to.
Yeah.
But do you remember when we had the prequels, how people would go and buy tickets to another film just to see the trailer for the Star Wars films and then walk out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine them doing this for this film.
No, for a lot of reasons. Mr. Tickle Trunk has been incredibly generous, but also very patient. This is a $2 Canadian, 2 loonies from our friends in the north, and it is a Shiba dog shaking his body left to right, surrounded by red hearts. That makes me tingle. It makes me feel special, Mr. Tickle Trunk.
It tickles
Thank
your
you
trunk.
very, very. Well, I wouldn't go that far. You can tickle my trunk, but it costs more than 2 loonies. I can tell you that, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Thank you for being here. This is It's wonderful to see you guys. We have 23 people in chat. I just thought I'd go live and we could hang out a little bit. A lot of us have been talking about the Rings of Power a lot. And I don't know if you guys are getting burned out on the Rings of Power commentary and things like that. That's part of why I tried to do the Fire of Fandom videos, was to remind us that Tolkien exists and Rings of Power is not Tolkien. It's also not Middle Earth. And what to remember really is Tolkien. So as this news comes out, we have something to hold on to, which is positive, and remember why we love something. So
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think about this, Nathan? Are you going to take your daughters and run out there and go see this re-release of Rogue One in IMAX?
Not even close to it. I mean, it's really weird that they're putting this movie out there, because it seems like they're putting this. You got Cassian Andor, and they're trying to sit there and
Uh-oh. I knew we were having audio issues, but we appear to have lost Nathan. Sorry about that. Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington. I love that name.
Great name. Such a good
Says
name.
says blue milking it. How you doing, Nathan? Are you back?
yeah, what happened there?
I don't know. Your audio was really choppy and then you dropped out. So yeah.
Oh,
Starting to robot.
Yeah,
oh,
bad. So
is it
yeah.
better?
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, we've got
Okay.
Sarah Garian says, so this week we're talking Star Wars. I'll try my best. We're just going to touch base on it. This is more of a, hey, did you know this? Because I didn't know this. I didn't know
Mhm.
anybody was, and that's the crazy thing, is that, again, re-releasing Rogue One, out of all the Star Wars movies you could re-release, why? And the answer is because they're doing everything they can to keep people to care about this Andor show. And you were saying, Nathan, are your daughters into Disney Star Wars? Are they excited to see female representation in a movie of characters that are dead, that are very dead, and were dead before we ever met Luke Skywalker? Are you guys going to watch this on Disney Plus?
No, my oldest is more interested in me getting into the third season of Stranger Things with her, and my youngest is anxious for the next episode of Naruto. So Star
Wow.
Wars is the furthest thing from their minds. And, like I was saying, this Andor character, it's like they're trying to manufacture nostalgia for the purposes of trying to get fans in seats, and it's going to fail miserably. I mean, this is going to be like Han Solo Redux.
Yeah, pretty much. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, I can't wait to not watch this movie. I know, right? And Andor. I mean, I don't have Disney Plus. I don't. And I don't even want to sail the high seas. I don't want to put any of that filth in my brain. And what really broke me was when I did go see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Menstruation. I mean, Madness with the Scarlet Witch and her imaginary children, and I just could not believe that they released this movie, that I paid for this movie, and that somehow this was Marvel Phase 4. But don't worry, it
Yeah,
gets worse in Phase 5. So
it sure does. I'm hoping that they do a Scarlet Witch film and that Doctor Strange can be the main character.
yeah. So I think I take this as a sign of desperation. What I really want to know is the box office that, wow, I have had this pop up happy. The box office that this re-release of a grade B, well, grade C Star Wars movie is going to get. I just, yeah, looks like one day. So that's it. Again, don't really care about this. It's not really Star Wars to me. It's just fascinating that they don't know what to do. They have no idea how to get people to watch a character nobody cares about that's dead, that's been dead for 6 years. Yeah.
Yes, it is bizarre, and they do seem desperate at this point, as you say, just to kind of refocus people, especially after people really didn't seem to like the previous Star Wars series that we've had.
Yeah. But don't worry. Speaking of renewing things that I and Purple don't like, once again,
Yay!
here we go. Now, she is not in the lovely cosplay. She's not in the lovely cosplay that we had last Sunday, although I'm sure we could talk you into it once we start talking about maybe season 2 in a little more detail. We know that Sandman, despite a lot of people's opinion on this panel, not just when the show came out, but before that, expressing our concerns. We didn't like the direction where this show is going. Don't worry. If you didn't like what they did in season 1, you're really not going to like what they're going to do in season 2. Purple, in summary, what was it about Sandman that you did not like?
Honestly, it was a massive waste of potential. Sandman has always been incredibly popular with comic book readers. It is probably one of those series that I think everybody has on their best or most popular list for a reason, and it has always been considered to be progressive, and that's how it was written back in the 80s. But with this show, they turned everything up to 11, and although we had a cast that fitted the roles, they didn't embody the characters, and the pacing was incredibly slow. So for me, it was just a massive waste of potential, and there was a huge drop off very early on in the season where the quality just took a nosedive.
So if you haven't seen season 1 and desperately want to see it, you should this is your spoiler alert. So anyway, Netflix, the Sandman fantasy series second season will adapt the rematch between Morpheus, that would be Dream, and Lucifer Morningstar, played by a very transgender looking Gwendolyn Christie, depicted in the original DC comics. So Gaiman said, we just carry on with this story in season 2. That's kind of marvelous that anybody who's seen season 1, when we tell them season 2 is going to begin with a big Lucifer Morpheus rematch. So if those of you who saw season 1, you remember that they were sitting there trying to come up with ideas of ways to hurt one another. And in some ways, it was incredibly anticlimactic, and it failed to represent what was beautifully illustrated and done within the original comics and graphic novel. Now, is that fair, Purple Valkyrie?
I think so, absolutely. And it was also a deviation from what actually happened in the book. It was never a head-to-head battle with Lucifer. It was actually a demon that he was going head-to-head with, and Lucifer kind of sat back and orchestrated and watched what was going on. But again, we have a great actress in Gwendolyn Christie. I really like her. But what they did to her and the look that they gave her is incredibly unflattering.
And you can see it in some of the stills as I jump around here. This is when Morpheus goes down to meet a very frumpy looking Gwendolyn Christie, if we're honest about it.
That looks something straight out of a bad 80s film right there.
Yeah, it's like a hot lunch lady in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That's what they did to Gwendolyn Christie, you know? But this whole scene with... Go ahead, Nathan.
Oh, I was just going to say, for me to even get into this, though, I think I'm going to have Purple send me her outfit that she wore so that I can get into costume and identify properly with the material.
If you do, I need pictures.
I don't want pictures. I don't want to know that's happening. I think you just gave me a slight brain tumor for that. But yeah, this was kind of the scene. Now, could Gwendolyn Christie have been a great Lucifer? Absolutely. She could have. In the comic books, I believe this was modeled after David Bowie, if I remember correctly. And of course, it was somewhere around between the Ziggy Stardust and his 80s China Girl Let's Dance white suit time. So there's a lot of people who've been, I would say, misrepresenting what the characterization in the comic was to push an agenda, which will surprise you, having to do with transgenderism, which is, you can do that, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to call you out on this. But this scene was really just added to the list of things of Sandman from season 1 that to me were like, why did you bother making this adaptation? Why? Because it was anticlimactic and it really looked low budget. So anyway, they're going to do more of it in season 2. Now so scripts for season 2 are currently being written. These scripts have been less challenging to write. Oh, wow. I abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Not, how could you have had a challenging first season script to write? That was just watching paint dry. In some ways, it's easier because we've educated the audience to the basic ideas. We've shown how the dreaming life can affect the waking. That actually didn't happen. That was one of the things Purple Valkyrie talked about in season 1 is they're completely missing the point of what the story of the Sandman was.
Hmm. Yes, they have this fantastical world called the Dreaming where they could have let loose with their imagination, and it was very safe and very pedestrian looking. People talk about the CG, and it started off looking pretty, but again, by the time we got to episode 10, it was not looking great. It was
Yeah.
almost like they were running out of budget at that point. But this show apparently has had glowing reviews from pretty much everybody. If you believe that, if you believe the media, if you believe Twitter.
So this article actually says it hasn't been officially renewed for a second season, but come on, guys, it's Neil Gaiman, and of course, given the representation in this show, that's more important than the actual audience score on this. It did get a lot of eyes on it for a lot of minutes, but I think after episode 3, people tuned out. We talked about that. The first 2 episodes were just mediocre, and then in the third, as we see a lot now, it was a bait and switch, and you were kind of off on some mediocre, agenda-laden snooze fest, at least in our opinion. So, yeah, we'll see. If we get a second season of the Sandman, I will, of course, watch it with Gray from Wakazashi's Tea House as well as Purple Valkyrie, just to be there in solidarity with them for this nightmare of a show.
Yes, there is also 2 potential spin-offs that they are talking about as well. So we could have the Death books with our new favourite incarnation of Death taking the lead, and there is also Joanna Constantine with Jenna Coleman, who might be getting her own spin-off also.
I agree with
please.
Gary Ban. I agree with Gary Banzo Sandwich Worthington, who says Robert Smith for season 2, please. I agree. Let's deep fake a younger Robert Smith. You know, there are so many icons from the alt rock scene from the 80s and the late 70s that with the technology we have should be in a show like this. If it was me and I was running it, I would stay close to the source material and also the experience of being alive and a teenager during that time. That's why the Sandman was such an important comic book, is it really represented the alt rock scene. And at that time, you know, alt rock wasn't just commercial rock. It was hard to find. It was really not played on the radio. The Cure wasn't played on the radio. The Cult wasn't played. Susie and the Banshees wasn't on the radio, guys. That's why this comic book was important and progressive in the same way. And what we got from this Netflix adaptation was like watching Velveeta melt on a warm day.
It really
You
was.
knew you knew something was happening. But no matter how closely you watched it, it didn't look like there was any action at all. It was just, by the time you got done with it, it was a puddle of orange goo. That's about it, you know?
And you bring up a really good point because it was so 80s, it's so in style and the way it looks.
Yeah.
I always go back to thinking how they did Stranger Things, and that was a
Yes.
fantastic take on the 80s. Why did they not go towards something like that? Everybody loves the 80s, you know.
I honestly,
Why have we got modern day politics?
And not only that, but modern day dress. When we looked at the characterization of Death, which we've talked about this, the Death was race swapped, given to somebody who in no way physically resembled Death, and then the costuming was just like somebody you'd meet on the street in England. Didn't have any period type of dress, no punk rock type of look, nothing like that. But also the actress they cast for this had absolutely the wrong personality type, or simply didn't read the source material and was reading it like someone in 2022. There was no sense of this person is powerful, is a demigod, is sort of a gatekeeper to transitioning, no pun intended, to the afterlife. It was just flat representation, character, reading lines with no context. So
It is bizarre, and Death is arguably the most powerful of the Endless because, as she said, when the last thing dies, she will be there. She will put up the chairs, turn off the light, and go. She is more powerful than Dream. That is why Dream goes to her for counsel. You know, he wants to learn more about humanity, and to do that, he goes to his older sister.
Purple, I'll let you address Jaden Hamilton's question. Does John Constantine show up in Sandman or Lucifer?
As far as I remember, both Constantine shows up periodically throughout Sandman, but he's not a major player until later on. Constantine mainly is from the Hellblazer books, although there is a lot of crossover. With Lucifer, I have not read or watched the show. But I still wish that we had had Matt Ryan. I know why. They said there was licensing issues, so they couldn't bring him in. That's why we had Jenna Coleman. But I just think he really would have elevated a show if he'd been on that.
Sorry, I was off camera trying to grab my Hellblazer
Oh,
comics
look
to
at
show
that.
you guys.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
so this is what Purple Valkyrie's referring to. Yeah, I'm not just a hater. Jaden actually read this stuff, which is what they like to call us. We're haters if you actually like the source material. We've got Magnus Arslan says, a Sandman. My Sandman turned out to be a hilarious dude that just wanted to tell me some funny stories and show me some stuff. Yeah. I actually would have preferred that, but we've got another story, and this one is actually a positive one. And we were just watching this Purple Valkyrie, and it has to do with Ralph Bakshi and the restoration that is ongoing with deleted scenes from the 1979 The Lord of the Rings. Do you want to set this up a little bit, Purple or Nathan? Just what we're looking at here.
Yes, absolutely. As you say, we were watching Bakshi because one of the things that we've been doing and we've been talking about, especially on Salty's show, is kind of going back and having and finding a new appreciation, especially for the older animated films and the Bakshi, especially with the Rings of Power failure, whatever you want to call it, coming out, really does shine. And what they've done, and this is on Bakshi's Twitter, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
they
yes.
are these are deleted shots that they've done from 1978, so they're remastering them.
I'm going to bounce you guys out, chat. We're going to watch this real quick. So one of the things you'll notice about Bakshi is that the characters in the foreground generally don't have a lot of detail. They're fairly basic, but what does have a tremendous amount of detail are the backgrounds. The backgrounds are stunningly beautiful. And whether you're looking at Fire and Ice, you're looking at The Lord of the Rings, you're looking at Fritz the Cat, any of these types of movies, the backgrounds are just completely what you would expect from a trippy, truly fantasy or science fiction background. I got to jump through a couple of hoops over here. All right, we're going to watch this real quick. Again, this is part of the restoration from the Lord of the Rings animated from 1978 by Ralph Bakshi. That's the Balrog. That's Gandalf. Fascinating stuff. The thing to remember is no one had ever made a film. No one had ever tried to visually represent what the Lord of the Rings was before. This was the first opportunity and chance that a lot of us had who were kids in the 70s and even kids who grew up in the 80s and 90s to see what Tolkien's world, and it was through Ralph Bakshi's lens. Now, obviously, you can take a look at the Balrog and compare it to what we got with Peter Jackson. It's kind of comical. It's a little underwhelming compared to what we got with the Jackson film, especially in the Fellowship of the Ring for the Balrog. But at the time, as a kid, this was amazing. And this was part of the movies, along with The Hobbit, that got me into Tolkien's world. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, I think this is probably the scene after they fall through the earth, after the Fly You Fools. And so the flames have been extinguished, so he's kind of just this muddy
Yep.
dragon-like looking thing.
Yep.
But still, I mean, the fact that they're doing this and doing something where Bakshi, despite the differences that you have between his animation and the books, Bakshi, you could tell, loved the material
Mm-hmm.
and was respectful of it. I mean, he even did the one thing that I really wish they did in the Jackson trilogies was doing the Saruman of many colors.
Oh, yeah.
And that scene was phenomenal in the Bakshi movie, and I wish Jackson had done that. So I'm looking forward to seeing this, especially after just having watched Fire and Ice for the first time a few days ago. Hell yeah.
You just finally saw Fire and Ice. I'm not judging you, but what I am is I am, first of all, I'm glad that you saw it. Second of all, those of you in chat, and I'm going to bring the chat back, If you haven't seen Fire and Ice, I cannot recommend it enough. I own it on DVD. It to me is one of the most pure science fiction fantasy movies I would say ever made. It's really accessible. You can watch it with kids if you want to, and it also has, well, let's say teenagers, but also one of the most sexy animated female heroines
No
you
joke.
will ever see. This is the cartoon that launched 1,000 somethings. We'll just say that it's actually quite beautiful. And you know what? You guys vamp for me. I have another link to that. I will actually pull it up, and we'll go right to that, Nathan. We'll come back to the other thing. So bear
Sure.
with me, God.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Wow.
right. Fire and Ice is an incredible film, a combination of the Bakshi and Frank Frazetta, which for me is a winning combination. And you are
Yeah.
absolutely right about Tigra.
Yeah.
She is she's definitely something special.
Quite amazing. Did
Mhm.
did he use rotoscoping animation
Nathan,
for
you're
this?
roboting. You're roboting, dude. Maybe drop out and come back in. Yeah, there was rotoscoping in this as well as, of course, The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. They all had rotoscoping. This one,
Hmm.
maybe not so much. But what they did for Fire and Ice is, Purple, if I remember this correctly, we just watched this, that virtually all of the action was simulated by actors and actresses to simulate what the body dynamics were. And so when people look at the female played by Tigra, I think that's her name, and
Hmm.
say women don't look like that, the woman that this was based on actually looked like the character as it's drawn.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Very similar
yeah,
to what the Disney used to do back in the day when they
yeah,
did their animated. All of these
yeah.
were directly taken from live action actors playing these roles. And in some cases, as Stolzy correctly said, you can see them in the background. And then you've got the beautiful watercolors and beautiful
Yeah,
foreground that they've given it.
Go ahead, Nathan. Let's
absolutely.
check your roboting.
Is it better?
Nope, not at all.
Nope. All right.
Nope. Okay, we'll drop you out. Maybe try coming back. So that's what happens in your live stream. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is, of course, from Fire and Ice. This has my favorite character from the movie in it. He is in the mask and fighting these people. I guess could look at this and say they're problematic villains at this point.
Wow.
Total badass. Total badass. Look, again, you can see in the foreground the characters, they don't have a lot of shading. They're basic line drawings. Their movements are incredibly fluid and human-like, but the work really went into these backgrounds. I mean, look at this. It's an ice lair with a throne room where some really crazy demented wizard lives, and this guy's coming in to help rescue somebody. This is the kind of fantasy that I miss and love, Purple.
It is, and if anybody hasn't seen this film, I highly, highly recommend it. It is a great film, and I think it's one of those that people kind of forget, even
Yeah.
though you talk about it and people say, "Oh, I remember that film," but yeah, it kind of gets
Yeah.
pushed by the wayside.
I'm going to roll the rest of it. Look at this. Just look at this. If you love fantasy and you love good fantasy stories, good fantasy archetypes, maybe you don't care so much about your representation, trans agendas, and all those other things, and just want a good story, Fire and Ice is for you. But look at this. There's your bad guy in a creepy lair. I mean, it's awesome. Look at this. Yes, it's a little dated, but it is freaking awesome. It's beautifully illustrated. It's a fantastic story. Great soundtrack. Yeah, it's just really good stuff.
It
Really good
really
stuff.
is. It is incredible, and as Slotty said, Dark Wolf is an amazing character when you get
Yeah,
to see him in the film, and every single shot of this, and I've seen the stills and the cells,
yeah,
they're all works of art.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. You can buy these on from Bakshi. I believe he's got them for sale. They're very affordable. Maybe someday I would love to get some of these cells. I really would. But look at these characters. Just look at these characters. This is what fantasy is. It's not feelings in hallways. It's not talking about current year stuff. It's battling good and evil in an ice fortress with orcs that kidnapped a beautiful princess. It's pretty basic stuff, right? How can you screw this up? How you doing, Nathan? How's your audio?
How is it? Is it roboting still?
No, you're good. You're good.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah.
Real quick, the animation for the female character on that movie
I'll pull her up.
was,
Go ahead, you
yeah,
talk. I'll pull her up.
it was, I mean, yeah, it's every teenage boy's dream to watch that over and over again.
Yeah.
Um, but the great thing about it is that they captured all of the curves that a beautiful woman has. And
Hmm.
a lot of those curves these days aren't actually viewed as appealing in a lot of respects. I watched it and I'm just kind of like, man, that's that's what I wanted my entire growing up. It's like every single curve that was shown there was the thing for every every male to have. And it was presented very, very beautifully, artistically. It was awesome.
Oh, there it is. Go ahead and take it big, Purple.
There
Make
we
it
go.
big.
Let me just
Yeah.
click on that and make it bigger. So
Yeah.
there we
And
go to give you an idea.
we'll bounce you out. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is one of the original production cells that they were talking about. So this has just been added from Fire and Ice. So Tigra. This is probably one of the tamer images, I would guess. But yeah, such
Yeah.
a beautiful character.
Yeah, I've got one more image, Purple. I will share this out, and there we go. And there's much more revealing stuff, but you can see she's wearing a transparent lavender G-string and transparent, like, top stuff through this whole movie. And then there's, of course, the problematic patriarchal male who comes in to save her, but at the same point, she fights right alongside with him and is
Mhm.
never bitchy to him, never talks down to him. They're just a team, and they're both badasses. And
Wow.
yeah, funny how that used to work. Funny how that used to work.
And but he's running around wearing a loincloth the entire movie. So I mean, what
Yeah,
what what are we bitching about?
I know. We'll do one more image. We'll see if you two will let me get away with it, just so you understand what kind of a movie we're talking about here. They do not shy away from the female form. They
Hmm.
do not shy away from the male form. It's a fantasy cartoon. This is a time in fantasy where it bordered on the absurd, some of what they were doing, but they never shied away from female form, from male form, and it was always about this. Like, both were equally represented. They were represented at peak physicality. So Lizzo wouldn't have ever been shown in a movie like this, but yeah, I think it's fascinating, guys. I really do. So
I do too, and it's something of a lost art now. Can you imagine something like this being made nowadays, or something? The chat were talking about heavy metal. I can't
oh yeah.
imagine. Cannot imagine
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, you guys vamp for me 1 second. Everything jumped on me. I need to get back to another thing real quick. Nope, we already did that one. Go
But
ahead, Purple.
I love animated films. I always have done, and watching these older films now, especially from the 80s and 70s, and even in the early 90s, I'm getting a bigger appreciation for how good technically they were, not just how they were animated, but for the voice acting, for the music, everything seemed to come together.
Agreed. Now, yes, and we've got some stellar words from Jaden Hamilton, of course, who's just going off to college, who says, "Boobies, I'm a fan." I think most people on this panel are a fan of boobies. Let's be really honest about it.
I concur.
Magnus, yeah, I know, right? Magnus Arslan says, "I grew up reading Conan comics, so I can take more of this." Absolutely agree. And then we've got Sarah Garian, who says, "I agree. A fit female goes against the agenda." It's
Hmm.
true.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works. It's funny how all this 2022 stuff works, right? So Dynamite Comics is going to expand what they've done with the Franzetta comics. Have you guys seen that, where they're taking those classic Franzetta paintings? And if you don't know who Franzetta is, maybe Purple or Nathan can pull up some images. But they've taken some of these beautiful classic deep fantasy illustrations and then turned them into comic books on Dynamite. It's something Maxfield von Priestley, who is a good friend of ours, everybody on this panel, who I work with on Tuesday, he's talked about these comics, and I've actually picked some up that are behind me. But they're going to do the same thing and take the characters from the Fire and Ice universe, and they're going to make comic books with them the same way they did with Franzetta. And I don't know if any of you guys have pulled up any Franzetta images. I will pull one up. But what do you think about that, Purple Valkyrie? Would you be interested in learning more about the Fire and Ice universe?
I would. I think there's a lot more to explore. I mean, as you say, it's a relatively simple story, Fire and Ice, but it's just, you feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg with these characters. You want to know where the wizard came from, and his
Yeah.
mother, who plays a big role, and we want to find more about the two huge the Fire and Ice
The
nations,
universe itself.
universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is some of the art. Okay, Nathan, whenever you need to split to, just let us know. But this is kind of the art that they had, and some of the styles of the art that they've done. Let me just share one real quick here, and I got too many things open. But if you know Franzetta's art, you have seen a lot of these images. Of course, there's the famous one with this guy on horseback with the curved horn helmet, with the axe, fighting all kinds of creatures on a dark steed. They're actually doing this in comic book form and giving these character backstories, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And now they're going to be doing it with the Fire and Ice universe. So, Purple, what do you got?
Yes. So
Yeah, there
this
we
is
go.
from the official Twitter feed that I love to follow, and just gives you an idea, and the female form that they never shy away from, and the beautiful
Yeah,
backgrounds that they give. But if
yeah,
anybody likes this style of artwork, I would highly recommend.
yeah.
And as you say, they're talking about the comic book with the Death Dealer
Mhm.
character, which is coming back. And I
Yeah.
know our panelist Max is a huge fan of that as well, and he has talked in the past how great a comic that is. But
Yeah, see that one.
look at
That
that.
illustration I know very, very well. I mean, look at the beautiful line work on this. And again, the female form. These are not little pixie stick whatevers that, these are women who have curves, who have big bottoms, who have big boobs. They look like women. And they don't shy away from the femininity of this in these fantasy settings. And they are fighting creatures with daggers, with swords, with chainmail bikinis. And it's like, I don't understand how someone can look at these images from 40, 50 years ago and somehow say this was disempowering to women. And what we really need to do is make a woman masculine. I don't understand this stuff. Yeah, there's the Death
Yeah.
Dealer.
Yeah, it's what it is it's a celebration of women and all that they are, not just to themselves, but to men as well. I look at those pictures and I'm just like, man, that is just it's
That one right there. Yeah,
fantastic
look at that.
artwork, and and it portrays them realistically, where so much of what we get today is completely and totally unrealistic. We get something that is artfully done, and it's meant to be beautiful, and it's meant to
Yeah,
be honestly respectful, like where a lot of people would say maybe it borders pornographic, but
that's
there's an element of it that is not that. It is
yeah.
it's meant to show really the beauty that God created, period.
Look at all the people in chat shouting
Mhm.
out their favorite paintings to this. And Purple, if you want to keep pulling up images, that would be
Absolutely.
fantastic. If you can't, do it too. There's another one. You can see the work and the iterations of the line work that was
Yep.
done by Franzetta to do this. God, I just, this artwork is timeless.
Great.
It's classic. I think in 2022, we've had our sensibilities so freaking scrambled that we can't look at this and see what it is, which is that fantasy is about escape. Fantasy is about being in another world that you could never ever be in. You got wizards, you've got dragons, you've got robots, you've got bad guys, good guys, you've got creatures with 8 tentacles trying to get you. There's holes in the universe. That's what this is. It doesn't need to have the feminist women's studies center approved genre pictures. Nathan, I know you got to go. Why don't you shout
Yeah.
out your channel real quick before you get out of here?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. A lot of fun to talk briefly about this stuff, but it was, fun to look at the stuff too. But you can check me out on my channel, Man of Manethrin, and I'm here coming up Tuesday on Salty Stream, and then Dungeons and Dragons on Wednesdays, and occasionally hopping over on Prophet of the Dragon as well. So check all them out and check me out, and we'll talk to you all later.
Thanks, Nathan. Have a good day.
Yep.
Yes,
Take
take
care,
care,
everyone.
Nathan. Have a good one.
Bye. But you can see, I mean, look at this. This is a truly fantasy setting. You've got a crashed spaceship on some type of lunar surface, and there's a fairy there. Like, this is what fantasy has always been about and should be about, which is the absurd, the fantastic, and getting immersed into a world that does not exist and in no way resembles our own. Oh, yeah. It's toxic masculinity unless a woman has it, like Masters of the Universe. Tila, I don't get that. Yeah, but I think she has like a strap on, Jane, if we're honest about it. Look at this female form.
Look at this.
This is a powerful female. This is a female who has like our woke better say agency. This is a woman who is a badass warrior who happens to have a tiger for a best friend. Would you F with this woman? Oh, yeah, she happens to be topless and wearing a G-string, but why does that diminish the beauty of this and her power? This is the part I don't understand, and where I'm like, my brain, like, I just disconnect from all of this bullshit propaganda we've been hearing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And this also isn't just Eurocentric beauty. This lady is portrayed as being Asian. So Frazetta, you appreciated all types, ladies from all over the world. And I just love seeing this sort of artwork. It's incredible.
I agree. I'm going to answer this question real quick if I can get things to stop popping all over the place. Hold on to that thought, Purple, while I jump. Oh, wait. Nope. It just jumped on me. Yeah, let's stay on this. I was trying to get to the Death Dealer one, and it just went to some trash thing. So, but yeah, just you describe that and what we're looking at real quick, and then I will.
Yes, absolutely. You talked about the quintessential fantasy and it being escapism. Here we have another. I guess she's a fairy, but she doesn't have the wings. But even though she's naked, there's nothing really suggestive about her. It's just another celebration of the female form.
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful stuff, guys. I mean, look at this. How could anybody look at this and think that this is disempowering to women? I think it's absolutely beautiful stuff. This comes from Mr. Tickletrunk for another $2 Canadian, says, not Franzetta. Repeat after me. Frazetta. Yes, I have stream brain. I'm sorry. And it again, much like a lot of the names from the Wheel of Time, when I was a boy and a teenager, I saw the words in my head and they stuck. So I don't say them the right way, but thank you for actually calling me out on that. Frazetta. You know, it's a little bit harder when you've got maybe a couple too many decades and you've said it in your head wrong for that long. But thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. You're entirely right about that. Look at this, you guys. Look at this stuff. It is absolutely beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. Look at the subject matter. This is fantasy. This is what fantasy should be.
It really is. It's incredible. And just no matter what we see, whether your heroines are in peril or whether they're empowered, it's still just beautiful. I absolutely love this. I've loved his artwork for a very long time.
Yeah. And I'm going to get back to what was requested real quick. I'm going to pop this in the chat. And that, of course, is the classic Death Dealer. That's the one that's been on album covers for heavy metal bands. This is the one that'll, I knew kids that had this up on their wall as a poster when we were in high school together. This is the classic image, classic iconography.
Mm-hmm. It is incredible.
It's really good stuff. So we'll pop back to you, Purple. Yeah, look at this. Again, it's absolutely beautiful artwork with absolutely beautiful subject matter within it.
And you mentioned earlier that some people seem to think that this is kind of gratuitous, or it's mocking the female form. I've never
Yeah.
thought that. It's a celebration, and especially when you have the male heroes with the female as well, and you can see the care and the 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 love that's gone into creating these characters.
Yeah. So we had some news several years ago that Robert Rodriguez was going to take the classic Fire and Ice universe and do a live action version of it. This goes back to 2014. Nothing that I know of has come of that. Um, in 2014, do I think we would have gotten a good show? Possibly. But I don't want Robert Rodriguez, especially after what happened with Boba Fett, because I think somebody snipped his junk to make supposedly the episodes of Boba Fett that he was on to make that happen. So I would love to see more Fire and Ice, but I'd like it to be handed back to Bakshi. And I don't want anybody to put any agenda in it, because if you look at those movies, especially the animated ones at Purple, you and I just watched Heavy Metal again,
Yes.
because we're talking about doing a big compendium of animated fantasy movies and science fiction movies. Going back and looking at these things, it's absolutely amazing. It is amazing to see archetypes that are within this movie. There's no agenda, there's no preaching. You are just completely immersed in the most fantastical worlds. And spoiler alert, there is a lot of very strong, very capable women who are not Mary Sue's, who get beaten up by monsters and other things within heavy metal, but triumph after overcoming adversity. It's interesting. It's almost like we're not
Yes.
afraid of strong female characters. We just don't like ones that are Mary Sue's.
Or Panda. Yes, exactly. There has never been a time when we haven't had fantastic female characters, and all you have to do is just go back a little while to see them. And Salty's absolutely right with Heavy Metal. It is a great film, and the sequel, not so much, Heavy Metal 2000. But if anybody saw the what was, I guess, a spiritual successor, which is Love, Death, and Robots, those were
Mm-hmm.
actually pretty good.
Yeah. I want to shout out T-shirted historian, who I think has an alter ego that's an annoying goat as well as a robot and a sock. Yeah, I'm not making that up. Go check him out on the Cotton Connection tonight on Snowdub's channel. I'm constantly giving the guy reach arounds. We got the Brothers Krim. This is somebody who used to be called Canadian Fantasy Corner. They did a Tolkien Fire of the Fandom video that's going to be coming out, I believe, in a week or two.
Nice.
And let me see. We also had the one and the only Baron Ormond Tag. Hail to you, brother. It's great to see you. I've been on his live stream, and he's also dropping a Fire of Fandom video. I think it's either the next one or the one after that. Great to see everybody here.
Mhm.
And then, of course, back to Sarah Gary, and said it's because fashion and art wants women to look like 10-year-old boys. You're absolutely right. And act like 13-year-old boys, and consider that to be the feminine, the immature masculine, annoying teenage boy archetype is what they want women to be.
Yes, and it's getting very, very old from a female perspective. Please, please bring back the beautiful, capable, strong female
Yeah.
characters that we've always had.
You know, Purple Valkyrie, I got to meet you in Dallas. We've obviously seen you cosplay. You're not someone who would ever fall into the category of a 10-year-old boy or a petulant 13-year-old boy. You are a fully formed woman with opinions of her own who can beat a lot of people's ass, even though you're 5 feet tall, not just physically, but also intellectually and emotionally. And I think that's the component that's missing to the characters that we've seen on screen, I don't know, maybe since 2016, is that it's missing to me what it is that a strong woman really is. Now, I don't know what that means to you, Purple Valkyrie. What are the qualities that you would say should be exemplified in a strong female archetype?
I would say a focus on femininity, not trying to push the masculine down to raise the female up, which we see a lot of, not to take on masculine archetypes, which doesn't work. You can't have and we've seen it multiple times, you can't have a very, very tiny lady beating up 200-pound men, because suspends disbelief. It just does not happen unless she gets incredibly lucky. But the whole idea of bringing back the nurturing side of femininity, the not so quick to anger, the wisdom, I think a lot of women bring as well. It's those characteristics that I would love to see brought back, as well as proving to be very capable in their own right.
Taker 610. That's a great take. Yeah, not that my opinion matters, but I completely agree with all that. It's funny how our species, and I use that word, our species, the human species, existed based upon a pretty basic paradigm. And that paradigm is now being subverted. Gee, I wonder what's going to happen. What's going to happen, guys? This is from Taker 610 for $2. Says any female dwarves in Ralph Bakshi's work. I think maybe in Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in some of those movies. I don't have those images handy, but as far as it being in The Hobbit itself, there were no female dwarves that I'm aware of, nor was there in the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King, the second movie that went back to Bakshi, or no, the Lord of the Rings, the first one that Bakshi did. I don't remember any female dwarves. Now, I think there are in some of those other movies, but I just don't have them handy. I hope that answers your question, and thanks for the $2, Taker 610.
Yes, great question, but I'm sure if they did, they all had beards, as Tolkien intended.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the next drop. I did a video today. We talked about it on Tuesday, and we're going to start winding down because we've got about an hour, and that's pretty much what I wanted to do today, was just pop on, say hey, see how everybody's doing, talk a little bit about fantasy that didn't have anything to do with the abomination from Payne and McKay and Amazon. But I did a video talking about the messaging around changing Tolkien's story. This is not Tolkien's world. It's not the Lord of the Rings. It's not Middle Earth. It's the Payne and McKay show with 24 made-up characters. But, what I wouldn't give to have some of these actually true, strong female characters that we saw in some of these animated shows. Like have them present, be in a modern fantasy property. Purple, can you think of an inspirational and aspirational, feminine, strong female character or lead that's been on small screen or big screen in the last 10 years that you would say is of note? Or is it all just pretty much been this bitchy, like 13-year-old boy, not feminine archetype we've been seeing?
It all seems to go back to, as you were saying, there hasn't really been any real feminine icons that we've had. We had plenty of them in the 80s. I mean, you think of characters like Ripley and
yeah,
from Terminator, Sarah, but recently not really. I mean, I suppose if you are a big fan of Stranger Things, perhaps 11 you could say was a heroic
Fair.
female character, but she is
Fair.
she is a teenager, so she is age appropriate for how she behaves.
That's a good point. I absolutely hadn't thought about 11. Yeah, we talked about the Alien show on Tuesday, and of course, what's the missing ingredient from the Alien series that's going to be on Hulu through Disney? Of course, Ripley's not there, and it's going to be about inequality in space, an orange man bad in space.
Yay!
I wonder if all the xenomorphs are going to wear like "Make America Great Again" hats. I wonder if that's how they're going to play this one. You know what I mean?
I wish I could say that was probably a joke, but given the way entertainment is heading, yeah.
And the way Twitter's censoring things now that we can't say on social media because something's going to happen in fall. And don't think the messaging and the exclusion and censorship is going to get any better. That's part of the reason why I think a lot of people are saying what they're saying now, especially. I'm not going to put words in people's mouths. Let's not do that. I'm just saying I think you're going to see a lot of troubling changes, I think, on this platform. And I also think on social media as things progress. Mm-hmm. And it's up to us to just keep fighting the good fight in whatever way that we can and talking about the things that matter to us. So Xenomorph, Mr. Tickle Truck, you're killing me, dude. Xenomorph Queen will have a she, them name tag on.
True story.
I hope. Yeah. Well, she could be a non-binary birthing person. Is that? I can't even make jokes about how stupid this stuff is. We'll go ahead and we'll end it on this one from the Brothers Quinn. Says strong female, aspirational, and inspirational female fantasy characters of note on screen. In the last 10 years, Deedle, I think it has been portrayed in the Ludus War One, I think in the past decade. I have no idea what the hell that is, dude, but you have much more nerd credit when it comes to me than I do on that one. Yeah, we will see. But please go check out the animated fantasy movies of Ralph Bakshi. This is something that's near and dear to Purple Valkyrie's heart as well as my own. I
Hmm.
cannot recommend Fire and Ice enough. It is an absolutely fantastic viewing. I have it on physical media. I ripped it to a file so that I have it on an SD card, but I always keep the actual DVDs. Also, check out Wizards if you want to go down a weird rabbit hole. With Bakshi, check out Wizards. It is more of the, gee, I bet they were taking a lot of LSD while making this movie. But Fire and Ice is really accessible. So, yeah. Hail to TRW. 1974 says, I'm not sure which offends the woke more, femininity or masculinity. Either way, it is clear that humanity itself is looked upon with scorn and cynicism. TRW 1970, you hit the nail on the head.
Absolutely.
Transhumanism, taking away the humanity from us useless eaters, which are meat. Not kidding. This is the demented people who run our world. And I can't talk about that, can I? Purple Valkyrie, what are you going to be doing tomorrow? I think you're going to be doing a chill and build stream, right?
I have got one of my Purple Valkyrie welcomes streams tomorrow, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I've got a very special guest who is involved in the Discworld community. Very much looking forward to talking to them. So that will be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central. And then throughout the week next week, the live streams will be back. So I think we're going to have some woo woo, which is going to be fun because we haven't
Sweet.
talked that for a while. And I think what I'm going to do is a couple of catch up streams and just kind of give my thoughts on some of the weirder and wackier stories that we've had in pop culture recently. And just to kind
Yeah.
of talk to you guys, because it seems that a lot of people are kind of feeling a little bit down at the moment, a little bit burned out.
Yeah. Let's talk. We'll talk about that in the next stream. But this is something that Purple Valkyrie and I have been talking about for probably a month or 2 months now. And it has to do with kind of the vibe we've been kind of getting and what we ourselves have been battling with, and what we're seeing, and just some of the challenges of what it's like now. Just leave it like that. But some of the things we're seeing on social media, some of the things from fellow creators, um, and just some of the vibe that we're getting. And we won't get into it on this show because we've gone over an hour now. But just realize that if you think that if things feel weird to you, if things don't really make a lot of sense and you don't understand, or you find yourself maybe a little more frustrated or sad, you're not alone. And you're not crazy. Just maybe try and take a deep breath. Get outside, go take a walk. Get off social media if you need to. And by all means, please stop consuming news from big media. Please, it just stop. It's not good for you. And it's not the truth. Let's be really honest about it. But I have to be really careful about that because they'll just take my channel away in a second. So yeah, what am I going to be doing next? I think tomorrow I may be doing some chill and build with Purple. I don't know. I'm going to be on
Nice.
something Monday. I think I'm going to be on a show with somebody, and I don't know who you are because I'm not organized at all. I'm not. Tuesday I have my own show at 7 o'clock Central. Of course, Wednesday I'm not going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons because everybody's off, but then next Thursday we'll be on Zach Seven's channel. Reach out to me if you're a small content creator, if you'd like to get together and collaborate, if you'd like some help with design work, things like that. I am available to offer what little bit of experience I have to anybody who may want it. So you all have a great rest of the weekend. Please subscribe to Purple Valkyrie. If you are not subscribed, put your notification bell on for her show tomorrow. It's about Discworld, but this is a really, really interesting person they're bringing in. And Discworld is something that anybody can enjoy. I can't recommend it enough as a fandom. So you all have a great rest of your Saturday. Check out who else is live streaming, and please go check out Snowdub later tonight if you're into R-rated puppet humor. I believe it's at 9 or 10 o'clock tonight. So anything you want to say before we get out of here, Purple Valkyrie?
Just want to say a massive thank you to Salty for doing this. Love getting to do these chill streams. Big thank you to Nathan for joining us as well. And most of all, a massive thank you to the chat, because you guys were awesome as always.
You guys, it's so great to watch your reactions. Like it's the things that we all love, right? The Frazetta stuff and the Bakshi stuff and the Hobbit and the animated things, and sometimes you just got to poke fun at Disney Star Wars just a little bit, because you got to laugh instead of cry, All right, you guys, we're going to get out of here. Have a great Saturday, and please drink one for me tonight. We'll see you later.
Take care, all.
Has ever. This is Salty Texas C. I am Corey DB. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you've seen and heard, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you on board. That way and we have things like live streams, which we are going to be doing every Tuesday evening. Take care. I hope you're having a great 2022.